Hello, this is Michael Blumberg, President and founder of Field Service Insights, and today I'm going to be talking to you about benchmarks and best practices for increasing service contract revenue. I'm about to share with you some results of a major groundbreaking study that Blumberg Advisory Group conducted in conjunction with Giantini and Company. The survey was conducted among professionals who were involved in extended warranty or extended service programs. And to participate in the survey, the respondents had to either influence, recommend, or make decisions about how these programs are offered to customers. We had a total of 205 professionals who participated in our study, and the overall objective that I had as president of Blumberg Advisory Group, working with Ron Giantini from Giantini and Company, was to identify best practices involved in marketing and selling extended warranties and extended service programs, and evaluate the impact of these practices on key performance indicators. The findings validate which strategies and tactics offer the best results, which in turn we believe will help managers and executives become more effective in marketing and selling extended warranty and extended service programs. Also, one of the reasons why Ron and I conducted this survey is we felt that while there was a lot of good information about how to manage warranties and how to deal with entitlements and what kind of resources and infrastructures were behind the warranty management process, we just felt there wasn't a lot of good concrete data and evidence available about what companies can do to increase revenue and how they're doing it, what strategies they're using, what tactics they're employing that leads to higher revenue for their service business. In looking at the survey results, a majority of the companies that were surveyed offer a standard extended warranty. A smaller percentage, that's less than 20%, offer customized programs. And most of the extended warranty programs are either 1 to 2 years or 3 to 4 years in length. In general, the shorter programs are associated with consumer markets where there's a high disposal rate associated with them and a higher refresh rate. Like, for example, cell phones. New models come out every 12 to 18 months. So the warranties on the consumer products are shorter, whereas longer extended warranty programs, longer coverage that is, are associated with business markets and more durable equipment, where that technology can last for a long time. For example, there are some technologies that last 10, 20, 30 years. So that's where we're likely to see longer warranty periods. One of the things we looked at is what processes are covered under these offerings. So the majority of people we surveyed have include corrective failures. So in other words, when the product breaks, it's fixed. Only half of the respondents include preventative failure, so like replacing a part to avoid that it might break down in the future. And then as we look at some other services, other processes that we covered, there's less companies that offer that. For example, planned inspections. About 36% of our respondents offer that. Periodic testing of capabilities, a little bit less than 1/4. Calibration services, a little bit more than 1/3. And the reason why this is important is because when we've looked at companies and assessed how effective they are in selling extended warranties by measuring how much revenue they're able to generate, and we have found that companies that are doing well in selling service contracts tend to be very specific about the processes covered, and they provide more than just one process. It's more than just break-fix services. There's a slew of services. So what that tells us is that the more processes you can cover under an offering, the more attractive it's going to be to customers who want to purchase, because it's either saving them money or providing them a better level of service than they can get on their own, or it's guaranteed. The other thing we looked at is what resources are provided and employed in the processes that are covered. So when it comes to providing break-fix, what are you offering? So over 3/4 offer on-site field service, and almost 80% offer spare parts. And again, there's other services that could be included as part of the processes that are covered. For example, loaners, diagnostic tools, remote support, depot repair, and advanced exchange part swap. So a similar statement can be made about those companies who are effective in selling contracts tend to offer more resources, provide more resources in support of the processes that are covered than those who don't. And again, it's the same underlying reason, is that there's almost a guarantee to the customer that they're going to get more services and more resources if they sign up for an agreement or a contract. Where I often see companies struggling in selling service contracts, it's often because they're not very clear about the processes or the resources that are employed, or they're just very limited set of processes and resources that are employed, and the result is not very attractive. There's not a big demand for it because the customer doesn't feel like they're getting very much. And the third factor we looked at was the level of performance that the customer is being insured as part of the contract. So we see here about 58% assure or guarantee that the technician will arrive at the customer site within a specified period of time. Some service providers also assure that the parts will arrive at the customer site within a specified period of time. That's about 39%. Here again, same principle applies. The greater level of performance and the more specific you can be about the levels of performance you're going to guarantee or assure customer, the more likely they're going to buy it. Where companies fall short, I'm referring specifically to those companies that are not getting a high attachment rate on their service contracts, it's because they're not very clear about the level of performance. That's what customers want. They want a guarantee, but they also need to hear the distinctions about what makes this service contract a value to them. And what's a value to them is the level of performance guarantee, the processes that you're going to cover, and the resources that are going to be employed. Ron and I were also concerned about how companies configure, quote, and price extended warranties or extended service contracts. And we found that most of the companies we surveyed use their CRM or ERP application to provide configure, quote, and price. A very small percentage use pen and paper, and about 1/3 use spreadsheets. Very few are using standalone configure, price, quote applications. We think that using CPQ applications is an emerging trend. What we're finding is that more and more customers want customized service contracts and extended warranty programs. To be able to deliver that to them, you as a service provider have to have the ability to configure, quote, and price these customized agreements. If you're dealing with standardized contracts, you could treat the offering as a line item or an SKU in your CRM and ERP application. But if it's something that's customized, you need to have that ability to configure, quote, and price. You have to have the flexibility and the ability to capture lots of different variables in configuring the contract. We also looked at what marketing tactics companies utilize to sell their extended warranties. And a majority of response rely on direct sales and sales aids, such as brochures, to market and sell these programs. Only a small percentage use other tactics, like reputation management and customer endorsements and testimonials to influence customer buying decisions. So, in case you're not familiar, reputation management is, in a sense, relying on social media, but not pushing out social media, responding to social media. So when the company sees that there's some tweets or some negative publicity or negative chatter on social media networks, they're responding to that by either contacting the person who's the source of that negative chatter or that complaint and trying to resurrect and resolve the situation, and then try to influence that person to then put something positive out, or to counter the negative chatter with positive chatter of their own. For example, when the company sees that there's some complaints or criticisms, they can go to social media and respond by putting out press releases or awards or positive statements that will offset and counter the negative complaints, so that the positive complaints rise to the top. If someone were to Google the company, they'd see those at the top, and the negative complaints would be further down the web page where someone couldn't see them if they're doing a Google search. And it will also offset, that would balance and counterbalance negative and often outweigh it. So while these other tactics are available, most of the respondents indicate that these tactics are more effective than direct sales aids and direct sales, but yet very few of them are using them. And in fact, we asked our respondents to evaluate how effective these different tactics are. So reputation management was rated to be highly effective. How we measure highly effective is we asked the respondents to rate the effectiveness of each of these tactics on a scale of 1 to 9. So if they got an 8 or 9, that was highly effective. So our respondents were basically reporting to us that they were giving reputation management a rating of 8 or 9 in terms of effectiveness. Customer endorsements and testimonials, 73% indicate that's highly effective. Now compare that to direct sales. 68% of them say that direct sales is highly effective. So what this shows us is customer endorsements and testimonials and reputation management is more effective than direct sales. And compare that now to sales aids. Less than 50% of the respondents indicate that sales aids are highly effective. Now, of course, there's other tactics that can be used that are a little less effective. I believe that more is better. Each of these tactics are almost like a column to a house. And let's say on top of the house, top of the column rather, is a roof. So the more columns, the sturdier the roof. Same thing here. The more columns, the more sturdier the marketing program. Another way to look at this is these are arrows in a quiver. The more of these arrows you can use, the more effective you're going to be at targeting customers and getting more customers. One of the other things that was measured in this survey by Blumberg Advisory Group and Giantini and Company was attachment rates when selling extended warranty and extended service contracts. And we were looking at the percentage of respondents that are experiencing different levels of attachment rate. So we see here in the top left hand, colored light blue, it shows more than 70%. The way to interpret that is 16.7% of the respondents have contract attachment rates of 70% or higher. 12.8% have contract attachment rates of 51 to 70%. About 1/4 have contract attachment rates of 26 to 50%, and so on. We were also interested in what percentage of the service contracts are renewed each year. In other words, what's the renewal rate? And the way they interpret this is if we look at the top left-hand pie, it's colored purple, 22.5% of the respondents have contract renewal rates of more than 20%. So that's very good. 38% of the respondents have contract attachment rates of 76 to 90%, and so on. So what that's showing us is that once you have a customer on a service contract, it's a high likelihood that they're going to renew it. So almost 1/4 of the respondents say that they have a 90% renewal rate. Okay, and then another 38% say that they have at least 3/4 renewal rate. So those are pretty good numbers. In contrast, it's a little bit harder work, a little bit harder effort to get high attachment rates. No one has 90% rate or higher, while it looks like more than 70% do. The number that are significantly above 70% from the data that we looked at is few and far between. Most of the respondents, I could tell you from looking at the data, are around 70 to 75% contract attachment rate. But again, the numbers are really in favor of lower attachment rates. So almost 50% of the respondents we surveyed had attachment rates of under 50%. So in other words, what these two data points are telling us is that it's a little bit of a challenge, a little difficult to get a lot of your customers to buy service contracts. But once they become a customer, if they're pleased with the service, don't have any complaints or problems, they're highly likely to renew. One of the reasons why the contract attachment rates are low is because many of the service providers are not effective in their marketing and selling of service contracts. For example, they're not making the distinctions I spoke to you about earlier about indicating the type of processes that are covered, the types of resources that are employed, and the levels of performance that are guaranteed. Nor are they utilizing multiple tactics beyond direct sales and brochures in trying to bring on new customers for their extended warranty programs. So let's look at the strategies and tactics that influence attachment rates. Companies that sell to businesses are likely to have higher contract attachment rates than those who sell to consumers. Why is that? Because most consumer products are sold to a retail store. The consumer comes in, they buy the product, they leave. The salesperson does not have continued follow-up and dialogue with that consumer once they leave the store. That's much different when it comes to industrial products or B2B, where the salesperson typically has the customer's number, or often it's not uncommon for them to make follow-up sales calls. Well, that's not a standard practice in the retail sector. The factors that influence attachment rates in general are the ability to customize the agreement. Customers are looking for, they don't want a one-size-fits-all. They want to make the distinctions they want. They want to make sure that the contract covers the types of resources they want the most, the types of processes they want covered the most, and the types of guarantees they would be the most happiest with. Also, from our research, we found that the ability to terminate early also influences attachment rates. It gives the customer a feeling that they can get out of the agreement if they're unhappy. Also, giving the ability to negotiate the price provides the customer with the feeling that they're in control, and also allows them to get what they actually want. So they might get better service. As a result, it's a win-win, because it's also a win-win for the service provider. While they may negotiate the price and may have to make a concession here or there, the end result is they're getting more revenue because they're able to include more services in the contract for the customer than if it was a standard contract and the customer says, no, I don't need all this stuff. At least here, the customer gets what they want at a price they like, and the net result is higher revenue and more customers under contracts. Now, these last four, there's an asterisk there. And the reason why there's an asterisk is, while we do not have the data to support statistical correlation, we do know from our experience that the more distinctions a service provider can make about the processes covered, the resources provided, and the performance guarantees that are included, the more likely consumers are going to buy the service contract. Also, the more likely that the service provider provides their salespeople with formal, consistent, and persistent sales training, the more likely customers are going to buy service contracts. And in general, we found that companies that implement the above tactics, they're likely to have attachment rates of 50% or greater. And so here's the data points to back that up. What this data is showing us is what percentage of the respondents have attachment rates of more than 50%, and we're correlating that with whether they're providing their service contracts on a standardized basis or customized basis. If you just look at the percentage of respondents that have attachment rates of more than 50% and have some level of customization, and compare that with those who only have a standardized configuration, you see that the percentages are higher. So only about 1/4 of the respondents who offer a standardized configuration have attachment rates of more than 50%. All the other ones have some level of customization, and that's leading to them achieving attachment rates of more than 50%. This next slide looks at the percentage of respondents who offer their customers the ability to terminate a contract early and have an attachment rate of 50% or more. So what this slide shows us is that approximately 60% of the respondents who provide their customers with an early cancellation clause have attachment rate of 50% or more, whereas only 31% that do not provide the clause have attachment rates of 50% or more. So clearly, it's that ability to terminate early or cancel early that is leading to a higher attachment rate. What we're looking at here are the percentage of respondents that offer their customers the ability to negotiate price and what impact that has on attachment rate. So approximately 1/3 of the respondents that provide their customers with the ability to negotiate have attachment rates of 50% or more, whereas less than 1/4 who do not allow their customers to negotiate have that high attachment rate. Now let's look at what strategies and tactics influence renewal rates. And what we found here, there are major differences in renewal rates between companies that sell to consumer markets versus those in business markets. Again, it's for the same reason, and that's because that when customer purchases a consumer product, they're less likely to engage with the seller of that product. The next time they're going to come into the store is when they need a new product. And it's very likely that store is going to sell them a new product because the store makes money on the product. Not so they don't make as much money on the services. Whereas when you're dealing with business to business sale or industrial products, the customer is like own that equipment for a long period of time. And as many of us know, is service revenue is one way that an industrial manufacturing company or an OEM can generate profitable revenue, is to provide services throughout the life cycle. So we're more likely to see higher renewal rates among those that are in the B2B market or industrial markets. And the factors that influence renewal rates are periodic billings. So those providers that provide billing either on an annual or monthly basis are likely to have higher renewal rates. The ability to extend the length of the program will also likely to have higher renewal rates. The ability to terminate early will also impact renewal rates. And the frequency of notification that the program is up for renewal will also impact renewal rates. And what we have found from looking at the data is that respondents who implement these tactics are more than likely to experience contract renewal rates of 90% or higher. And here's the data to back it up. So here we're looking at those providers that have contract renewal rate of 90% or more. And about 1/3 bill the customer annually, and another 1/3 bill it monthly. So those are two preferences that consumers have. They either want to be billed monthly or they want to pay in advance. Less of them want quarterly, or do they want to be pay in full upon signing of the service contract. We can also see what impact the ability to terminate early has on contract renewal rate. And again, here we're showing contract renewal rates of more than 90%. We're showing the percentage of respondents that have contract renewal rates of more than 90%, and almost one half, actually a little bit less than half, so about 44% of those respondents that allow the customer to terminate early have a contract renewal rate of 90%, while those that do not allow them to terminate the contract early, only 25% of them have a renewal rate of 90% or more. Here we're looking at how many notifications do you have to provide the customer that the contract is up for renewal, and only showing those respondents that have contract renewal rates of 90% or more. So the more frequent the follow-up, the more likely to get higher contract renewal rates. So 1/3 of our respondents with contract renewal rates of 90% or more indicate that they're contacting the customer 4 or more times to remind them the contract's up for renewal. And this suggests that frequency of contact is influencing renewal rates. So let's look at the key takeaway here. First one is the more distinctions a company can make about its extended warranty programs, the better the programs will perform in terms of revenue generation. And more specifically, the factors that influence performance include the scope of the offering, such as the processes performed and the resources covered. I can't stress it enough. The flexibility of programs, the ability to customize the program, the ability to extend the length of the program, and the ability to negotiate the price, and the ability to terminate early also influence contract renewal and penetration rates. And having a structured and disciplined approach for notifying customers that their contract is up for renewal, and also for training salespeople on how to effectively sell service contracts and how to overcome objections about the service contract. Another factor is the breadth of the marketing tactics. The more distinctions you can make about your tactics, the more effective you're going to be. And lastly, the use of automated configure price and quotation tools will also help you in being effective in selling those customized service contracts, which in turn of greater interest to customers, which as a result, if you have the ability to do that, you're very likely to have a higher attachment rate and renewal rates. So there's a lot that we covered in this presentation. I suggest you view it multiple times. Continue to visit this portal where we'll be presenting more data and case studies and interviews with experts on how to improve your ability to market and sell service contracts. And last but not least, if you'd like to talk to us further about any training programs we have, coaching programs, or customized consulting, where we could show you specifically how to improve your program, please feel free to contact us at 215-643-9060, or email us at info@fieldserviceinsights.com and put in the subject field extended warranty, and in the body of the email indicate what your interest is. Thank you very much. Bye.